All right, in this guitar tutorial, we are going to take a look at Jacob Collier's song Heaven Butterflies from the new album The Light for Days and show you how to play it. This is going to be for 6 or 5 string guitar, so there is a tuning we're going to get into, but whether or not you've got the Jacob Collier Taylor Guitars signature 5-string model or not, now of which there are 3 models, more affordable models out there, so you can check those out. If you saw the Paul Davids and Jacob Collier interview recently, that was kind of showcasing some of the differences on all of those. We're going to base this on the album version instead of the Mahogany Sessions version, which I typically like to do the live versions because you can just hear the single guitar. But because The Light for Days is just, you know, full of layers of acoustic guitar, there are some parts on the album that are layers or overdubs. And there's even some things that he sings differently that are really like some of my favorite parts. And so I want to be able to demonstrate some of the variation that is on the album as well. There are only 6 primary shapes that are used. There's some variation in those shapes, but those are the bulk of what we're going to need to know. And only 4 of those give us all of the verses and choruses, over 80% of the song. So that's going to be one great luxury. A lot of things are going to be familiar because all of the shapes that are used in this song have been used on other songs as well. So if you've watched any tutorials with me before, all the shapes should be familiar. If you haven't seen some of those, there's a link to the playlist that has all of my Jacob Collier tutorials in the description. Just to quickly show you what those first 4 shapes are: a major shape, a minor shape, a major in first inversion shape, and a major in second inversion shape. So you can see all of the shapes that we're going to build are primarily, most of them are only built on the lowest 3 strings of the guitar. Again, whether or not you're on a 6-string guitar or a 5-string guitar. And they're not huge stretches. So technique is not a limiting factor here. Yes, we have to learn a few new chord shapes, but they are primarily 3 notes that we're fretting at a time. The important thing that we do have to learn about this is the geography of where things land. When we first learn guitar, most of our shapes kind of exist in this first position or all in the same general area of the guitar, and we're moving vertically up and down the strings. Playing in an altered tuning, and especially the way that Jacob does, we're working more horizontally. We're going this way. So we do have to kind of track with where the notes are on the neck as we move up. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, let me know in the comments by typing first time, and then let me know what you're most curious about learning about Jacob Collier's approach on guitar, and I'll be happy to address that in a future tutorial. But before we tune our guitars up, there's one disclaimer I need to say. I know that not everybody wants to learn theory, but since we are learning a Jacob Collier song, there are going to be a few things that we're going to need to understand. Now, because we're not learning how to play Kumbaya with campfire chords here. So I'm introducing something on this tutorial that I haven't used before, and it's going to be called a nerd alert. Now, the point of the nerd alert is for me to group a bulk of the more theoretical music theory discussion into one section where I'm explaining how the chords are built, things like that. Things that are going to benefit you in the long run to learn, but you don't have to know them in order to learn the song. So I hope you're going to pick up a few things along the way. I know that these songs have taught me so much, and the beauty of building these chords with 3-note triads has really made a lot of things about music theory and the use of diminished chords and all these other things that Jacob does quite often. It makes so much more sense to me, so be watching out for that. So the first thing I want to cover is teaching you the secret behind Jacob's tuning. Now, the way that the 5-string guitar comes off the shelf is in DAEAD tuning. And in that tuning, our open D shape, which we'll cover in a little bit, that open D shape is home, or the tonic, or the 1 chord. And everything is built around that to be able to play other chords in the key and always refer back to this D shape as 1. So we're using what we call the key of D shapes. We're always going to be labeling them based on those simple triads: D, E minor, F sharp minor, G major, A major, B minor, C sharp diminished, don't get scared, and back to D. The reason that this works so well is that the top 2 open strings, which are usually left open and ringing, are tuned to a D and an A, which is the root and the 5th of the key of D. So those notes are always within the key as long as we stick with these key of D shapes. So they ring over and they act as the magnet to pull us back to that tonic. So now Heaven Butterflies is in a slightly different tuning. It's in DAEAE. So our first string, instead of being down to D, we tune it up one whole step to E. And when we're in this tuning, which prior to the Light for Days album, he had only released one song in this tuning, and that was Never Gonna Be Alone. The Light for Days has 3 songs in this tuning. So the main difference that we have to remember when we're in this tuning is that instead of using the key of D shapes, meaning the open position being as our 1, we are going to use the key of A shapes. Now the beauty is all the shapes that we fret on the lowest 3 strings are the same, but the home chord or the 1 chord, the tonic, is in a different location. So I mentioned before when we were in the first tuning, we said D, G, A. A was the 5 chord of D. So now that we're in DAEAE, this is going to be the position of our tonic chord. So the reason that works is that we have the A string and the E string, which is the root and the 5th of the A chord. Now we're going to be able to follow the key of A and find all our shapes and have those top 2 strings work over the top of it. 2, 3, 4. There's our D chord. Our 5 is E. 6 is F sharp minor. And we're back to the A. So that's the main difference. And since all the chord shapes are the same, the important thing that we have to remember is the geography, where we are, where is home, and how do we find the notes of that scale relative to where the nut is. So to get your guitar into this tuning, if you're on the 5 string, all you're going to have to do is raise your first string up a whole step to E. And if you're on a standard 6 string guitar, you're going to leave your first string, your E, where it is. So you're going to lower your second string, B, down a whole step to A. And then now we're going to jump down to lowering our 6th string down a whole step to D. Now the trick to this tuning is we're going to have to take our 4th string, which is normally a D, and raise it up a whole step to E. And lastly, what we need to do is to raise our 3rd or the G string up a whole step to A. But before you do, I'm going to tell you that if you're on a medium gauge string, that is going to get pretty tight. I recommend lighter gauge strings. And if you know you're going to stay in this tuning a lot, I would suggest getting a 0.022 wound string. Go to your local music store and just buy a single individual string. It'll just give it a little more flexibility so that it's not quite so tight. So that string is going to be tuned up to be in unison with our 2nd string, which is an A, and that's also the key of A shapes we're playing. So it just kind of blends right in. If you were to leave it as G and just try to mute it, which I've demonstrated in other songs, is that there is no G natural in A major. So if it ever rings out, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb. So this is a way to just get it to blend right in. And this song is capoed at the 3rd fret, which puts us in the key of C, but again, our guitar brains are still thinking the key of A shapes. Without the capo, we were on the 7th fret. So just like we would do in standard tuning, if you were playing A, D, and E in standard tuning, and then you put a capo on it, you would still call it A, D, and E, and you'd play it in the same location relative to where the capo is. We're not on the 7th fret of the guitar now, we're on the 7th fret above the capo. So now this is our home bass. Looks like the 10th fret of our guitar, but it is 7 frets above the capo. All right, so let's learn some chords. So this is 3 major chords, using only 2 shapes. What are those first 2 chords? It's called D over F sharp, which you've probably heard in standard tuning. But this is the D major chord in first inversion. What that means is putting the 3rd of the chord in the bass. Do, re, mi. That is now our lowest note. And the way that the major chord in first inversion looks is 4, 5, 5. Which is why then, if that's the D chord, D over F sharp, slide up a whole step, that's E over G sharp. An E chord, but in first inversion. And then we go to A in what's called root position. Now, of course, all the major chords have a first and second inversion shape, which we haven't talked about second yet. What would the first inversion shape of the A chord be? Because we're going to need it later, is do, re, mi. Same relationship. So it's about the shape and the relationship. All 3 of those shapes are the same. So we start off with D over F sharp, E over G sharp, to A. And then some of the signature things that Jacob does is he drags his fingers from the top strings to the low strings, and then pulses on the bass string. And that's the whole intro. From there we go right into the verse, and we're going to play that same pattern, and we're going to introduce one new chord. I see the whole world in your eyes. I'm gonna watch you rise. So here we're going to what is called a B minor shape. If this is our A major, our 2 chord is B minor. All the root position chords, which means the root of the chord or the lowest note that we play, is the name of the chord. We have our root, our 5th, and our 3rd. So if we know that in root position, that 3rd is on the 3rd note that we're playing, in order to make a major chord minor, we have to flat that 3rd. So the difference between a major shape and a minor shape is just that 1 fret on that 1 string, which is why when we go to build our minor 2 shape, now instead of it being 2 frets apart, it's only 1 fret apart. So when we play that second line in the minor chord, I'm gonna watch you rise, we're gonna follow it with that A chord in first inversion, or A over C sharp. So remember, this is where we have to think of the shape that we're using above the capo, and if we're calling this A, whole step up is to B, whole step up again, we would call that C sharp, but this is in first inversion, so it's an A over C sharp shape. I'm gonna watch you rise like an angel in the night. So what's happening is here is now we're going just backwards down those first 2 chords. Like an angel in the night. Now that's how he does it on the Mahogany Sessions version. Just that E over G sharp to the D over F sharp, and then now we're adding one new shape. It's a major chord in second inversion. What that means is putting the 5th of the chord in the bass. But that's the nerdy part. What it looks like is this. 2, 4, 5. This is an A chord. This is A chord in root position. Do, re, mi. That was A chord in first inversion with the C sharp, or the 3rd of the chord in the bass. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now this is the 5th, or the E note of the A chord, which is the 5th, is in the bass. And we have the 5th, the C sharp, or the 3rd, and the A, the root, up there. So this is the real signature thing about the way Jacob plays in any of these tunings, is that he's using chord inversions. Now, as nerdy as that sounds, it is essential to get that kind of sound. He's so far all we've played are A, D, and E chords, really. 1, 4, 5, which is what millions and millions of songs are built around. But it doesn't sound that way because we're using these inversions. Everything has a different character to it. Different inversions introduce a sense of motion and voice leading, which is more like how a piano player would play piano. It's like they don't leap from one chord to the next. They move the least amount of notes, the least amount of distance as possible to transition from one chord to the next. Now, that's not across the board, but that is the general principle behind using these chords and these chord inversions that makes this sound so special. So here we've got this A over E, and then we resolve it to the E chord, which normally we'd pick up all our fingers and have to move from an A chord to an E chord and change everything. But here we only have to move. We're lifting up one finger and sliding our pinky down. I do recommend using your pinky on that, what would be depends on if you're a 6 or 5 string guitar, but the upper part of the triad. Most of the time using your pinky on that string, it just makes for some easier transitions and kind of economy of motion with your fingers. So that is A chord to an E chord, but we're keeping this note constant. So it's a really nice transition. So now let's take a look at what he does on the album, which has a little bit different flavor to it. There's a little hammer on and pull off thing. like an angel in the night. Basically, it's taking this second chord, and instead of just landing on the D over F sharp, we take our ring finger off so it's 4-4-5 instead of 4-5-5, and we hammer it on, and then pull it off. It's a nice little touch. And that's kind of, instead of plucking it again, just kind of slides down. And that's the end of the verse, and now we go right into the pre-chorus. So let's take a quick listen. I don't know where you come from, and I don't know where I've been. You're finding a way through all my black and white, and I know that I'm gonna see the light. So you notice those first three lines use the same 4 chords over and over again, most of which we've already used. So we talked about this F sharp minor, 4-4-5. I don't know where. We're going to a D chord. Now, this is where D has been referenced before. Here, we're going to call it D5 because he's just going to minimize the voice leading, or to make it smoother instead of it being, I don't know where, which works, but that's kind of a leap. I don't know where. This one just goes up, so it's 0-5-5. I don't know where you come from. And when we do that, we have this common note, that 5th fret. And I don't know where I've been. You're finding a way through all my black and white. Now the last line is going to be chord shapes that we've already used. We're going to go back up to that B minor, to that A over C sharp. And I know that I'm going to see the light. Now what is this? This is starting where it starts to get a little weird. Jacob does this. He goes way, way high on the neck. Again, we're working horizontally here. So the higher up our capo goes, the higher up some of our voicings might get up above the 12th fret. Now what this is up here is it's the major shape, and it is 12 frets above this. So it is the octave of this D chord. This is our D shape, or our D position. Yes, it looks like we're on the 15th fret of your guitar, and if you don't have a cutaway, you're going to end up kind of reaching over it a lot, and sometimes Jacob goes even higher than that, so it gets a little weird. This is the highest we have to get on this song. And that hammer-on is on the 5th string if you're on a 6-string guitar. So the last thing to mention is in that section, Jacob introduces a little bit of kind of body percussion on the guitar. Now he tends to tap the neck, or the body of the guitar, but the downside of that is it can mute the strings. What I recommend is just this little turn of the wrist so that your thumb is clicking against the lowest string. I don't know where you come from. I don't know where I've been. So let's move on to the chorus. Now the chorus is full of just chords that we have already learned and used, just in a different order. And the first 3 lines only use the same 3 chords in a loop. We've got our E major shape, our F sharp minor shape, and D. So it sounds like, and it's like heaven, there's a rainbow hanging over me. And then we cycle that again. In heaven, when you are close to me. And we do it again. Heaven, you take me up into the light I see. And the last part, we're going to use a few chords that we already learned in the verses. So take me up into the light I see and shine on me. So we're going back up to that D shape that would be 12 frets above the capo. And now I recommend once you get up this high on the guitar, I know I've said before to use your pinky on what would be the highest of the note of the triad, but up this high, switch to using your index, middle, and ring. It's just a little easier to reach than that. You are so heavenly. So now I want to demonstrate a couple things that you can do differently to sound a little bit more like either the Mahogany Sessions version or the album version. Now, the Mahogany Session version does the easier option. So in that chorus, we're used to hearing that part that goes, and it's like heaven. Hearing that little melody. Now on the album, it's an overdub. He doesn't play it live with the guitar part. So what he does on the Mahogany Sessions to mimic that motion is this. And it's like heaven. What he does is he plays that first E to the F sharp minor, and then the melodies would normally be inserted there. Da na 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 na. But instead he just takes that shape and slides it up to our original A position. If you want to insert that melody, what you have to do is change your fingering a little bit on that F sharp minor chord. Heaven. Switching to your middle finger so that your index finger is available, because that melody starts on the open second string before you go to the D. And it's like heaven. There's a rainbow hanging over me. Then we go right into the interlude or instrumental, which is just like the intro. So one thing I forgot to mention before is that in addition to kind of this rake from the high strings to the low strings, he would, and pulsing the bass, every once in a while throughout the song, he'll maybe do this descending top two strings. And in this interlude, instead of that, he does harmonics, which is just resting your finger above. It's going to look like your 15th fret, but that's essentially 12 frets above the capo. Resting it on the string without pushing the string down. It's the same note if you were to fret it, but you just rest it gently on it and pluck the string and it'll let those notes ring out. And now we're going to go into the next verse, pre-chorus and chorus, and all the chords are going to be the same except for one. And it's going to be where we put that first B minor chord in the verse. So let's play up to it and so we can take a look at it. So the old house burning down, it didn't make a sound. Instead of a B minor, it's going to be B7, which looks like this. Here's the B minor, here's the B7. Now what it is B minor. We have the flat 3 or the minor third. A B7 is a major chord with a flat 7. So now we need that major third, and our 7, if we remember that this 5th string on the 6th string guitar is our 5, there's our flat 7. So this is a dominant 7 chord, and we're going to use this shape again later in the bridge. So remember it. And the rest of the verse is just like the first one. And then we go into the next pre-chorus, which is exactly the same as the first one, except for that really fast lick that he does. And I'm going to demonstrate what that is. So let's hear it up to that point. Around you stay, rocking my whole foundation. And all of my walls come down. You can just do that if you just want to play through, just play it through the normal way. But this is the spot where he introduces that lick. What it is, slowed down. There's a technical part of that. I mentioned before that these songs are not overly technical. This is the most technical thing. 1, it requires us to know a little bit about the scale, where the notes are. 2, the crazy speed in which he plays it. So let's just quickly break it down. Now it's all notes in groups of 4. So it's really 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. It's just 16th notes. They just happen to be really fast. The other thing is that we just pluck the first note and the rest is all hammer-ons or pull-offs. And all of my walls come down. And out of this whole creation, you're the one that's gonna make me feel alive. And now it's chorus, which is exactly the same as the first version, and on the album he doesn't actually insert that melody at all. I personally like it, so I tend to do that, but you can do it either way. 'Cause you're my head, there's a rainbow hanging over me in heaven. When you are close to me, heaven, take me up into the light I see. Okay, we have arrived. We have arrived at the bridge. Take me to the bridge, as James Brown would say. This is my favorite part of the song, absolutely, if not of the entire album. Now, the great thing is that the primary shapes that we're going to use, we only have to really learn one new shape. Now, there are some variations on the shape to get the same voicing that he uses, and we're going to cover that. And there's also the option to not do those extra variations if we need to make it a little bit simpler. The most challenging part about this, as I've mentioned more than once, is the geography. Again, our shapes are similar, but our locations, we're not using key of A locations. So essentially what's happening here is most of the section is switching from A major, well, shape, we're in a different key, remember, but if this was our 1, we're going from the major to the parallel minor. This is nerd alert. Okay, we're going to the minor. So theoretically what's happening is less important to understanding how to actually play it. So I'm going to first demonstrate how to play it, what the shapes are, and then we're going to break down what each of those chords are and what it means and what we have to do differently. So take me up into the light I see and shine, shine on me, shine on me. So let's go through each line, just one chord at a time, so that we can learn the basic triads or the basic shapes that we've already used for most of these and with their location on the neck. Then we'll come back and look at the extra extensions that he adds by fretting the top 2 strings. So I mentioned we're going to the parallel minor, going from A major to A minor. And that's just in general, but that's less important for you to know. Too much nerdiness is a good thing sometimes. But right now, let's just go to the simplest version of explaining this. So we're going to go from this A minor to an F, which is this major shape we've already used, D, E, F, but now on the 3rd fret. Our next chord is going to be a G7. We learned the B7 before, and I said to remember that shape. It's going to be the same shape, but now built on the G position. The way it looked before when we did it as a B7, way up here, the same shape would look like this. Now the great thing about this tuning is we have 2 A strings, our 2nd string and our 5th string, if you're on a 6-string guitar. But these 2 strings are an A, which means sometimes we can vary the voicing by whatever note we're fretting on the A string here. We have the other option is to fret it on the upper string. That is the same, it's the same pitch. So this is a way to vary the voicings. And what's really cool about this, and I had to listen really closely to figure this one out, because I was hearing a clash of 2 notes and I was like, which chord is it? And I realized what he's doing. So that's the G7 position. But he's not barring everything. And he has this open E string on top, so which is so cool. So, and it comes out with the way he picks it, just from low to high. Like that. So the next shape is C over E, which is a major chord in 1st inversion, which we had done for those chords. But now, if this was D over F sharp in our intro, we need C over E. So same shape, but now it's built off the 2nd fret, 2, 3, 3. And then we're going back to that F major, to a G, which is a major shape, slid up 2 frets on the 5th fret, to the A minor that we started on, to a G over B, which is a G chord, major chord in first inversion, a shape we have used in multiple locations now. But we're just climbing up the scale. A minor up to B over G. This looks like that. So that's the first line, just here in the lowest part of the chords. Shine on me. Now let's take a look at the upper voicings that he adds to some of these chords in the bridge to kind of just vary the voicing and add some contrast to it. And both of the new additions that we have to do are the exact same shapes that we used in the pre-chorus of Little Blue, if you've learned that one. So to start with, we have this A minor shape, but we're essentially turning it into an A minor 11. It's got our minor 7 and an 11. Again, nerd alert, don't have to know that, but now you do. So it's just barring those top two strings. Our next chord was that F major chord. And we're also going to bar something with our pinky. And this is what I describe as the largest chord that Jacob plays on guitar so far, because of the stretch. So we've got 3, 3, 5. Those are the frets. And then barring what would be the 7th fret above the capo with your pinky. What's it called? This is an F major 7 sharp 11. Does that sound like a chord that you want to learn? It might sound a little intimidating, but this is where the luxury of being a guitar player is we can learn some of these shapes. And you notice, like, I haven't been calling any of these shapes with their extensions, meaning the extra open strings from the top two. They're adding different characters to the chords, but we're basically naming things based on the triad that we have to fret on the bottom 3 strings to make the names of the chords a little more accessible and understandable. So after that F major 7 at 11, we went to the G7, which we already demonstrated. Back to that C over E, and then we do this F major 7 at 11 again. And he doesn't do that he doesn't do this one. He doesn't do this upper voicing on the Mahogany Sessions, but he does do it on the album. To just the G major, to A minor, to the G over B. So let's hear it all together. Now we're going to move on to the second line. This, of course, is the headiest part of the whole song. So we're having to take a little extra time on these chords. Now, after that chord, we're going to go to our next new chord shape. And it's an augmented shape. I'm going to slide up 1 fret. This is going to be called the C position, because if this was our octave thing that we did before, 12 frets above the capo, now we're down a whole step. So it's a C augmented shape. What is an augmented chord? It's a major chord with a sharp 5. So I talked before about how the way our root position chords are built is with the root, the 5th, and the 3rd. Here we have root, 5th, major 3rd. Now if we need a sharp 5, we need to raise it a half step. So now we've got that 10, 11, 12, that's referring to frets above the capo. So that's our first shape of this second line. Now we're going to take that C augmented shape and we're going to move on. The thing you're going to notice when you sing over it, this is where Jacob goes an octave up. I can't do that, so I'm going to sing in the lower register. And what makes it even trickier is that the note that we're singing, shine, is right there, but the note we're playing, shine, is in conflict with it in all the best ways, right? In this chord and the next chord. So we're going to go from this C augmented shape to F minor. Again, D, E, F. Before we played major, now we're playing minor. And this note, that minor 3rd, is the same note that we introduced as the sharp 5 in the C augmented shape. And the note we're singing is clashing with both of them. The next chord is C over G. This is a C major chord in second inversion. We've used the shape before. We use that A over E down here on the 2nd fret. Now we just slide up to the 5th fret. It's a C chord with a G in the bass. C over G. Next we're going to use that augmented shape again down here at what we'll call the E position. E augmented. So it's 2, 3, 4. And from here it's going to go slide up a half step and get rid of that sharp 5 to be an F major chord. So those tensions, these new chords, one that we modulated and two some of these other chromatic chords that are outside of the key, it create this just tension that when we land in a place that's familiar or not with so much dissonance, it just feels so good. Now we're going to go to a D7 shape. We did the B7 in the 2nd verse. We did the G7 here on the 1st line of that of the bridge. Now we're basically going to use this exact same shape down here. So the relationship's the same. And he does it using a little hammer on. Okay, I'll play it through one time together. Shine on me. Shine on me. Congratulations, you made it through the bridge. That's quite a feat. All right, good on you. You get a nerd badge. Okay, so the last part is just cycling these 3 chords: F sharp minor, E major, and D. What a relief after all the work we just did in the bridge, right? And what comes next is the most satisfying return to our home key that I love to sing. I love hearing it. I love to sing this line. And he didn't sing it on the Mahogany Sessions version. And to me, it's just so satisfying to come from this D7 chord. Shine on me. I love that part. Okay, but that's aside from the point. What are the chords, Justin? Okay. Now this is that kind of looped ending. No new shapes. So we just walk right down from the F sharp minor to the E major to the D. And we get to sing that melody coming out of the bridge. Maybe add a little hammer on. And then it's kind of like this ad-libbed vocal stuff. I can feel your butterflies. I'm awake and I wanna be. So it just cycles and cycles. The finger picking pattern is going from low to high and then creating a little back and forth with those open strings, high and low. And it's not exact, it's just kind of creating this little bell-like back and forth. And that continues on through those vocal lines. There's about 12 of them, I believe. And then at the very end, only light I'd ever need. Back to those last 3 chords from the intro. And that is the whole song. If you want to learn all of the shapes that Jacob uses across all of his songs, check out this video up here. And if you want to go even deeper, join me on my Patreon in the link in the description.